Hey guys, so today this is more of a serious video. Clearly the videos on my channel are not that serious. Like, most of them are pretty stupid and not serious. But to start off, I would like to say I am diagnosed with OCD, autism, ADHD, and I used to have selective mutism. Selective mutism is like a very unknown thing. Like, it's known, but not a lot of people know about it. And like OCD, people make jokes about all the time. That's really fucking annoying, but you get used to it. Because it's actually a thing, and it's obsessive compulsive disorder, and you have obsessions and compulsions. It's just a shitty thing to deal with, and I have had that diagnosis with me through my whole journey. And selective mutism was a thing I had for a very long time. And ADHD, I don't know how long I've been diagnosed with that. I'm just on ADHD meds to help me focus and do things properly. And OCD, ADHD, and autism kind of all circle around in a little circle because they're all common within each other. And then selective mutism was something that brought a lot of distress to my life, as most of these things did. So my whole life, I kind of grew up the quiet kid that no one really talked to because I was way too fucking anxious to talk. Like, talking felt like I was, like, if you had stage fright, it's like that, but everywhere, and you just can't do it. The name's controversial. Like, selective mutism, it's not selective. Well, it is, but you don't choose what it is selective to. Like, for me, it was almost everywhere. Like, I could talk with my family, but if other people were around, I just couldn't really talk. It felt like my whole inside was doing everything it possibly could to make me not talk. It was awful. Like, I grew up with this until I was about 14. So I went into high school with this, and I was in grade 9. I couldn't talk to anyone. It was awful. Teachers telling you to say your name. You just couldn't say it because, one, that's in front of more people than one person. I can't even talk to one person. How am I supposed to do that? Like, it's just awful. And from personal experience, people would get mad at me all the time for not talking. Like, in 6th grade, I'd go to my teacher interviews. My dad would just sit there yelling at me. He'd just like, just fucking talk. You can't do that. You just have to talk. Like, but he didn't know any of this was going on. He just thought I was being annoying. And I was just like sitting there, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything about it. I just couldn't talk. Like, most people don't get the fact of how hard it is to talk when it does feel like everything inside of you is just doing the opposite. Like, your lungs, like your vocal cords, my vocal cords would literally feel like they would like stop working, and I just couldn't do anything about it. My vocal cords would be like, nope, not today, whenever I was in public or somewhere that was not my home and not the people I see every day. And I was like very quiet at home too. It was not just like only in public. Like, at home, it was hard for me to talk still, but I would do it. It just was really hard. And people don't understand that when they try to talk to you, that you just feel like you can't. And my teachers knew about this once I started high school, and they did understand, which was really nice because I grew up with no one understanding, and it was just a mess. Like, once I got all these things figured out when I went to the hospital, they figured it out. They found out what was going on and could help me. But before that, everyone just was going against it and was like, you have to talk. You're not gonna... My dad literally told me, you're not gonna be successful if you don't learn how to talk. And that hurt because I wanted to talk. I wanted to do these things, but I just felt like I couldn't. I felt like my vocal cords were not working. And I didn't understand why. And I grew up that way. I didn't understand why I couldn't do these things. My parents would always order for me because I just would shut down. I wouldn't care if I didn't get my food. I just didn't. I like talking. If I had to talk to get my food, I wouldn't get my food. It was like that, like, you know? So, it was just a huge thing. And it took over so much of me. And a lot of people didn't really understand that unless they were, like, fully confronted about it. And my high school experience, I talked to one of my teachers. I felt very proud of that. That was a huge thing for me. And she was like so happy. She felt honored to be one of the people I talked to. Because I would talk to my parents, my brothers, my one friend, and then my grandparents, and those kinds of people. And it was like not the easiest thing. And then going on with OCD and autism, people would put those two together, and ADHD. Most people see ADHD as someone who, like, talks all the time and just does things, but that's more like me now. Now that I've overcame selective mutism, and I got through it, I don't even know how I got through it, but it just happened. One day, I did it, and it felt like my whole world just felt good. Like it felt like my whole world wasn't collapsing when I was talking. It just felt like something. I felt ready, which was a big part. Like, if you're not ready to do it, you're not gonna do it. It's just too hard when you're not ready yet. Just like with a lot of my issues. When I wasn't ready, I couldn't overcome it yet. Like, I'm not ready to overcome some of my compulsions and some of my I'm ready to overcome my obsessions, but like, they're still not going away, and I still am distressed by them, so don't know why that's not working, but I wish it was, but it's not. And like, at one point, I dealt with anorexia. It wasn't that bad. Like, I was really skinny, but it wasn't like I was 20 pounds. But I would just sit at the dinner table and cry over a bowl of water soup. And I wouldn't eat it. And then I couldn't do anything because my parents would yell at me for not eating the soup. And they'd get mad. They're like, just eat already. Just eat. Just fucking eat. And I was like, I can't do it. It felt kind of like that when I had selective mutism. They would yell at me for things that I just felt like I couldn't do. And it's so overwhelming, and you just cry and cry about it because you can't seem to grasp why you can't do these things. And you want to do them. I wanted to eat. I wanted to talk. I wanted to, like, I still want to not do these compulsions. Like, I don't want to do them, but I just feel like I'm controlled. I don't feel like it's my control. And with my eating disorder, when I had issues with that, I've never really come to terms until recently that I had an eating disorder. I just couldn't come to terms with it because I just thought, maybe it's normal. Maybe it's okay. if I'm not, I never felt I was unhealthy enough to get better until people were telling me to go to the hospital. Even then, I felt like I wasn't skinny enough to get better. And with talking, I felt like because I could talk to my parents, what else do I need? And then all of a sudden one day, it was when I just turned 14, like maybe a few days after I turned 14, I was still in the hospital. And I walked up to one of the nurses and I was like, "Can I use the music room?" It just came. Like, I was sitting in my room, my parents were there, and I was like, "You know what?" And they're like, "What?" I was like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna talk to these people that I've been so scared to talk to for the longest time. I can do it." And when I got up to her, I had probably some of the worst anxiety ever. It was like really high, and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm actually going to talk." And I couldn't come to terms with it. But I worked through the feeling of my vocal cords just not working. I don't know how I did it, but I just did. And I was just so impressed with myself. I was proud of myself. Growing up like that is hard when your teachers throughout your whole elementary school and middle school, they don't understand. And they just think you only choose certain people to talk to, and you just don't want to talk to them because you don't like them. Or you're just being quiet and stubborn, or you're just like a stubborn kid, when really you're feeling so much anxiety over something they don't understand because they don't know what this is. It took me so long to figure out what this was, and I just didn't know what it was. Like, I felt like I was dying because I couldn't talk because it was so freaking scary, and I didn't know why it was so scary. I didn't know there was anything wrong with me. I just thought, like, I knew something was wrong with me. I just didn't know what. Like, I knew it wasn't supposed to be like this. I knew I was supposed to be able to talk like everyone else. But it just felt like I couldn't, and I couldn't get over it. And my parents were frustrated because they didn't understand it either. No one understood it. Not even myself. So that just made it 10 times harder because I can't explain what's going on. How am I supposed to know? I'm like 10. I'm 12. I'm 10, 12, 13. 8. I'm growing up like this. And I just didn't understand any of it. Like, who would? And it was just really freaking hard. Like, no one gets how hard it is when you feel like you can't talk. Like, talking becomes so much a part of your daily life that you don't even notice how much it is to take for granted. Talking gets you everywhere in life. If you can't talk, people do think you're not going to be successful. They think, "Oh, that person, yeah, she needs to stop being so stubborn and picky about who she talks to." No, it's an actual thing that takes you over you, and it's not fair. It just isn't fair. Nothing about this is fair. OCD isn't fair. Depression isn't fair. I don't have depression, but I know it's not fair to the people that do. Insomnia, for the people that have insomnia, that fucking sucks. I don't have it, but I know it would fucking suck. And I can't compare anything that I deal with that because it's different. Just because you have a little bit of anxiety doesn't mean you have anxiety. Just because you can't talk to one person doesn't mean you have selective mutism. Like, sometimes in my daily life now, I still have, like, times where I will freeze up and not be able to talk to some people. I don't know what it is, but there's certain people that still trigger it, and I don't know why. Like, some people just trigger this for me again, and I have to relive some of this stuff day to day, because it's just really hard to get over. And, like, I know if certain people walked up to me that brought me anxiety to begin with, I still probably wouldn't be able to talk to them. Just because they're surrounding me gives me anxiety. And then they want me to talk to them. I don't know how it will work. Like, I can't imagine myself even talking to these people. Like, it's so far away from me that I just don't know if it's possible. Like, there's things that people think are impossible, and there is. It's possible, but it feels like if the world was ending, you still couldn't do it. Grade 8 was probably one of my worst years for selective mutism. Grade 6, 8, and maybe grade 9. 6, 8, and 9 were probably some of the worst years. All the other years were hard too, but those were some of the hardest. Because the people around me just seemed to be the least understanding. And it was just the hardest thing ever. Like in grade 6, my teacher would always call on me in class on purpose because she knew I was shy and quiet, but she didn't know I had selective mutism. I didn't even know I had selective mutism. So why would she know? And she just made life the worst. It was living hell. I would cry myself to sleep every fucking night because I was scared of my parents to begin with, because at this time my dad was yelling at me all the time, and it would scare me so bad. I was always scared I was gonna get in trouble for nothing. I'd get in trouble for doing nothing, and I didn't know what to do. And my teachers made it worse. In grade 6, I felt like I had no good life anywhere. I wanted to, like, I hated life to begin with. And then to be brought up with everything going on, getting in trouble for everything, things I couldn't help, it just made me want to die. I wanted to kill myself. Then it came along to grade 7. That was a pretty okay year, to be honest. I don't know what it was about that year, but it was pretty okay, and I was doing pretty well. And then grade 8 came along, and I had the worst anxiety about everything, and I was barely at school ever. That was a terrible year. The school counselor gave me so much anxiety, I just wanted to, like, jump off a bridge when I saw him. And I became really suicidal again. And then in grade 9, I was still really suicidal, same with grade 10. And I, like, attempted suicide in grade 10. I drank cleaner in grade 9. Grade 11, I had more suicide attempts than any other grade. I did a few times, and I was in, like, the ICU because I was close to being successful. By the way, activated charcoal is a really bad drink. But, like, what I'm coming at is the fact that people don't see selective mutism as a thing, but it really is. People don't see OCD as a real thing, but it really is. People see depression and anxiety as a trend, but it really isn't. They're real things. I've been depressed, but I'm not depressed anymore. When I was depressed, I wouldn't say I had depression, if that makes sense. I've just been, like, weeks on end, laying in bed, not moving, not eating, not drinking, not doing anything, not taking my meds, and just sitting there doing nothing and having no emotions. That was an awful time, but I'm glad that's over. Oh, fuck, my dogs are noisy. But yeah, selective mutism, it puts you through hell. From what I've experienced, I think from all the mental illness I've had, with my autism, OCD, ADHD, when I was depressed, when I had severe anxiety, when I had selective mutism, I honestly think selective mutism was the worst. Because I couldn't even talk about it. Sometimes it acts up when I'm really anxious and have my OCD thoughts and my obsessions and compulsions. Like, sometimes I get so overwhelmed that I can't talk anymore. It felt like that almost all the time because I couldn't talk. And I just think it was the worst out of all of them because you're overwhelmed all the time. Not just majority of the time or some of the time. It's all the time. It never goes away. And like, when I'm overwhelmed with OCD thoughts, I still get like that. Like, I still feel like I can't talk. I don't know what to do when I'm in the hospital and I'm having OCD thoughts. I'm crying. I'm crying so bad. I can't tell them what's wrong and why it's wrong. I just can't. I don't know why. And then I keep doing these things that are bad for me. Like, I was hitting my head against the wall and the nurse is like telling me, "You're doing this for attention." Fucking no, I wasn't. Like, who the hell says that to a patient? You're doing this for attention. Stop laughing. I wasn't fucking laughing. I was hitting my head against the wall because I was so stressed and I couldn't tell anyone. And then I couldn't tell anyone even more because she made me even more overwhelmed. And I did it harder and harder, and then they put me in restraints again, and that was annoying because I hated being in restraints. But you go through things, and you deal with them, and hopefully they go away. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. It sucks. But in my opinion, selective mutism was the worst thing I dealt with. It was just the hardest to deal with, in my opinion. But overcoming it was one of the best feelings. I felt like I had just lifted so much away from myself. Like, I felt more free from myself. But the thing is, when I got over my selective mutism, not too long after, I developed my really bad eating disorder because I felt like I needed control again. When I felt like I lost my control, and it was, I don't even know, that was a weird time in my life. And now that I'm almost 17, it's been a few years since I've dealt with a huge amount of selective mutism. I still go through it every once in a while, like I said. It just depends on the situation, depends how overwhelmed I am. It just depends. And it was something I dealt with for a long time, to the point where it was just everyday debilitating. Now it's only debilitating sometimes, which is way better than before. So I think I've come a long way with that. I've come a long way with everything, but I'm still stuck a little bit, but I'm getting there and I feel a lot better than I did before. So, yeah. That's kind of all I really have to say right now. If you want a part 2 or one where I talk about OCD, autism, or ADHD kind of thing, just let me know in the comments and tell me. It would be super nice to hear your feedback. Maybe if you've struggled with selective mutism, you could talk to me about it. And yeah, it was a really hard thing to deal with, but I know you can do it. And you can overcome this, because I did. And it felt so much better to be free from it. But you have to be ready is the main thing. Because if you're not ready, it's not time yet. You're never fully ready, but when you feel like you need to do it, and you feel like it's just something you need to do, and you're motivated to do it, that's when you're ready. That's when you need to try and take action. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. I hope you guys watch this video and enjoy it, or something along those lines. But yeah, thanks for watching. Peace out, fam.